The city's plan to condemn more than 60 homes in Kansas City and build a new police station has been temporarily put on hold. Sayed Shabbir's live at the current police station with tonight's top story.
Krista, the plan is to move the East Patrol Police Station from here at 27th and Van Brunt to 27th and Prospect. But to do so, 17 acres of homes will have to be destroyed. Now, the council has been working on this for months now. They were scheduled to vote on it today, but Councilmember Jermaine Reed put a 2-week hold on it. Still, the residents I spoke to in the area say it's just a matter of time before they'll have to move out.
Meeting went on probably about 2 hours. I don't think that the people, the organizers, were expecting it to go on that long, but there were so many concerns, so many complaints and questions. A lot of people were asking, why weren't we involved in this decision? I think that was probably the biggest concern.
Is that the only way y'all can fix the neighborhood, is moving everybody out? That's your only option?
To say it in plain terms like I did before, the ship has sailed on that. This is where it's going. So, I mean, we can talk about it.
Of the 3rd District are tired, they are worn out, and they have given up on a city that completely ignores them and their needs in the planning process.
Moving forward, here's what's going to happen. Each homeowner is going to get 3 appraisals in the fall. The highest one will be the offer that's made on their home. The homeowner will then have just about 3 to 4 months to accept that offer, find a new home, and move out. We talked to 2 women who had planned to retire here. Clearly, that's no longer an option.
Well, this was my path to school every day, to Wendell Phillips Elementary School. This little building right here used to be laundromat, and then where the church is now, that used to be a grocery store, and we'd walk down here and get candy. Just right here on the corner, that used to be the candy store. We'd get penny candy, and Miss Brooks would sell us all the candy we wanted. She was quite mean, actually. But she made us learn math, and she made us give her the correct amount of money, and she demanded that. There was no notice, there was no discussion about site selection, none of that was presented. Just odd things started happening all at once. After that sales tax was passed, we started noticing things in the neighborhood, like strange people walking up and down, like in large groups, walking up and down the streets. People who were saying that they represented our neighborhood really didn't represent our neighborhood, and saying that there were meetings that weren't really meetings that were being held. And I'm like, well, when do we get invited to any of these meetings? When do we get to talk about what could and could not happen? I knew these kids really well because they were in my class. And their mother passed away a few years ago. But I mean, this is a really nice house. They got a brand new roof, new windows, new siding. They just boarded this up last week. I don't know about the kids here, but this house caught on fire last week. I don't know how. I think somebody set it on fire. The lady moved out maybe 30 days ago or so, but you can see it's in ruins now. And you see somebody's dumped tires here. Like, this happened just within the last 7 days. They weren't here. I drive through this street all the time because I don't necessarily like making a U-turn. So you can see that knowing that this area is vacant has invited some undesirables to our neighborhood.
So in 2008, we finished the neighborhood plan, and we were able to submit that plan to the neighborhood and get their support. And we actually were able to win an award from the Missouri chapter of the American Planning Association for the students' work based on the level of student engagement, community engagement that we did. And what that plan did was it identified two key areas to focus. One was 27th and Prospect, and one was 23rd and Benton. So 27th and Prospect was identified as a place where we could have a focus on commercial retail development. Prospect is a really busy bus line. I think there's about 5,000 bus riders there a day. And there's also about 20,000 cars that go east-west on 27th. So it's a high traffic area, a great spot to concentrate and focus on retail. The city completed an update of its area plan for what's called the Heart of the City Area Plan, which covers the area and the neighborhoods around 27th and Prospect. That area plan proposed in its land use plan that the area between Brooklyn and Prospect, north of 27th, remain residential. And the whole area around 27th and Prospect was proposed to remain basically with the same land uses that it had. Commercial on Prospect, the church just south of Prospect, but predominantly residential neighborhood around a small commercial intersection. On the other hand, we discovered in the months following that there was another plan working its way behind the scenes in City Hall to build a police station and crime lab at the corner of 27th and Prospect between Brooklyn and Prospect, 26th and 27th, on the same blocks that we thought would be an important place to stabilize residential housing.
And then the other big question that we heard a lot of people ask is why here? Why this site? Why not choose, an abandoned school property or some abandoned lot? What we heard from East Patrol Police who spoke at this meeting, they said they looked at 25 sites, and this was the only one of all those 25 that matched all of their criteria.
I am very concerned about the implications of this process. I have been willing to work with people involved. People know who I am and the time that I have put in, and I have not been consulted beyond Eric Botch talking to me once and me suggesting y'all should take a better look at other sites. No one has made the case for why this couldn't happen on properties already owned by the city. No one has made the case for why this could not be on the site of one of our 38 vacant schools. And you could be working with the school district to solve a problem and not take private property. This does not make sense to me.
To be taken away from the closeness that I feel for my neighbors and how we share our individual community on this block together, it's just devastating.
There are some people that still have mortgages on their house.
So what the city is actually offering them is not enough, or it's just enough to pay their mortgage, and then it leaves them nothing to move on and purchase a new home.
Residents are hoping the city can come up with a better deal before they move out.
You know, the disheartening part of a lot of this is that this is a neighborhood full of people who are struggling, you know, economically depressed, if you will. Not all of them, and I don't want to say economically depressed and think that homeless people live here, because obviously they have homes. But you know, they're just paycheck to paycheck, living, you know, not living high. You know, some of the people need roofs and gutters and things like that. They're just people who are making it, which is no different from any other population that you go to, whether that be in Brookside or Westport or wherever else. I mean, the commonality amongst people that live here versus those other places is real.
So once the city had announced that they were going to use eminent domain and take people's homes to demolish and build the police station, the city was required by federal law to follow Section 106, which is part of federal law that came out of the aftermath of urban renewal in the 1960s and 70s. Section 106 is a research process where anyone using federal funds, including local, city, and other agencies, if they're using federal funds to basically impact a historic resource, they have to document what they're going to do before they do it, and they have to look at the impact on historic resources. There were two major reasons why this happened at 27th and Prospect. The first reason was there's a National Historic District for the Santa Fe neighborhood. And when you have a major project with federal funds right next to a historic district, you have to look at the impact of that police station on that existing historic district right across the street. The second reason was the city wanted to use federal funds to help the homeowners that they were going to take their homes and move to another location. So once you had that federal money involved, that kicks in the federal review, and that's called a Section 106 process.
The State Historic Preservation Office does have the ability to sign off on the design of it, to make sure it's compatible with the general character of the area. We wanted to gather public input on it so we can forward that on to the state office, so we actually have more than just city staff. And this was the one that was presented, I think, 2 weeks ago at the public meeting, was the site plan. So, there we go. Exactly. And I said, that's why we wanted to start getting public input early. This is the preliminary design, so we want to make sure we get plenty of comments in so we can forward those on to the architects and to the project managers.
It does not meet the terms of the MOA, which were that it would actually not have massive setbacks like that. You know, there's an overabundance of green space, which is either defensive urbanism or suburbanism, or just, you know, somehow that buffer is required by zoning. And if you look at this MOA, okay, it says one of your mitigation measures, if you look on page 4, we're going to try to maintain the street wall on Prospect with reference to the historic buildings. And then it says, but we're going to follow current zoning with the setback. You can't do both of those things. You have to make a decision for one or the other. And, you know, my personal concern would be that you've got a massive transit-oriented corner there at 27th and Prospect, one of the busiest bus ridership lines in the metro, 5,000 plus people a day going north-south. You have 20,000 cars going east-west. And this design is set back so far from that corner that it's going to encourage the blowout of those other two buildings, and it's not going to maintain the urbanism that you need for people to take the bus and walk to this facility. In the fall of 2011, the city was basically on the fast track to get the police station started and to get the site cleared as quickly as possible. they had to do the Section 106 process, so they hired Elizabeth Rosen and Rosen Preservation to basically act as a subcontractor to Helix to do the research on the neighborhood history and the remaining housing in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, the process is often, in terms of preservation, is focused on architectural significance. So they look at integrity of the neighborhoods. They look at the integrity of the housing, when it was built, how it was built, and whether or not it could be a historic district. Because of a lot of the clearance that had already occurred in and around the area of 27th and Prospect, outside of Santa Fe neighborhood, there was not a lot of integrity left. So when you focus on architectural or housing significance, you don't find a lot of integrity left because it's been demolished. On the other hand, another aspect of the way in which we define historical significance in the United States is looking at socially significant places. So not just the architecturally significant, but also the socially significant, who lived in a particular neighborhood. When you do that kind of analysis, you find a whole different set of historic resources that you want to preserve.
And the work that's been done in 6 weeks is amazing, and I don't want to criticize that, but I do want to say, is it sufficient given the adverse effect of losing what integrity we have left? Because yes, it's all about blight and the causes of blight, and the city and urban renewal has long been the cause. So here we are facing another public facilities decision that drives the creation of blight, and you guys don't want to take the time to do the work that needs to be done to avoid the exact situation that's been created here. In fact, we're just adding another demo site. If you go down Vine Street, there's nothing left.
We think we could, if I might, we're going to help. That comment needs to be addressed. We think that the neighborhood, recognized neighborhood organizations will help with getting more time. That's one of the objectives.
120509, authorizing condemnation, taking private property for public use in the area bounded by Brooklyn and Prospect Avenues and 26th and 27th Streets, all in Kansas City, Jackson County, Missouri, providing for the payment of just compensation, therefore, authorizing continued negotiations and purchase by the Department of Public Works. Transportation Committee recommends do pass.
Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that 3rd District Councilman Mr. Reed has an amendment to offer.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson. Councilman Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 weeks ago, I held ordinance number 120509, which allows staff the authority to begin condemnation proceedings for those who have yet to settle with the city on the East Patrol and Crime Lab project, in hopes that I could facilitate homeowners in the city sitting down one last time to come up with the agreeable number for all. In that 2-week period, I have personally facilitated several meetings with property owners, and the city has now 8 more signed options to purchase than they did 2 weeks ago. With that, Mr. Mayor, this amendment will revise the certain tracts as stated of the land in Section 2, authorizing condemnation and taking private properties for public use.
Thank you, Councilman Reed. Councilman Sharp.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to express my personal thanks to Councilman Reed for going the extra mile to try to work out voluntary sales on these properties.
11 ayes.
The motion has passed. If there's no further discussion on the motion, is there, I'm sorry, the ordinance as amended is now before the council. Is there any discussion on the ordinance as amended?
What we're trying to say to you is that you have not picked the right 4 blocks. You have picked 4 blocks with very high levels of home ownership. Let me put this in political terms. You are losing voters.
Oh yeah, this was Miss Merriweather's house. Limestone, and I'm sure they're trying to take it, because that's a nice rock to have. but it's heavy. And look, they've taken the meter and everything. Miss Lyman, she's one of our elders in the neighborhood, and she had plenty of kids and grandkids, and this is her kind of her legacy house. It's an enormous house. I understand it's about 6,000 square feet. It's amazingly big, and I think they had to take her to court as well. With the condemnation, because apparently the city wasn't being fair with their offer.
What can I say? I've got supposed bills to pay. What can I say? No, sir, don't go through the trouble, 'cause I could help you out.
Okay, well, my name is Brian Gross. I'm with Phillips Architects, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what we're planning for the site. As Eric mentioned, there's a number of facilities that are going to be on the site, a number of different uses, I should say. The site is bound on the south by 27th Street, on the east by Prospect, on the north 26th Street, and along the west side of the site is Brooklyn. So we're starting to develop some ideas about several areas. This center area here that would be between the community building and the crime lab, we're looking at that as sort of a community use area. And we're showing the idea this is a basketball court here. We think it's a sort of a very safe part of the site, sort of towards the middle of the site. It's also right off of the basketball court that would be inside the community center. So it would be located adjacent to that.
Now, unless you're gonna have a lot of Michael Jordans playing in there, it's gonna be all right. But what about tennis? What about a tennis court there?
Yeah.
I mean, it's giving you, you know what I'm saying? It's giving you a choice there.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody don't play basketball. I mean, I play them both, but
yeah,
tennis would be nice.
Good.
Tennis would be real nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many square feet these buildings?
All four of them, or well, both of them combined, I think is about 170,000, something like that. Really?
Like right there on 27th Street, you got a lot of parking lot before you get to your building.
Right.
Right here on Brooklyn, you got a lot of grass before you get to your building. So right here on 27th Street, it's a lot of vacant space before you get to your building.
Right.
So to bring it a little more closer to the street, where it could be more knowledgeable, will be the thing.
Because the rendering here still shows Prospect as a vacant lot, and And the goal was to not have Prospect look like a vacant lot. And not only have you kept Prospect as a vacant lot, but you've added another vacant lot completely down 26th Street.
So there must be a difference in philosophy in terms of this frontage. I had the same kind of discussion with Art Brisbane about the big printing building that's downtown. But if it's not welcoming, not that he could change anything, because that decision wasn't even made at a local level. But I think what folks are saying is there some way that the design could be more welcoming to the prospect and so that people will feel connected to the building, and that a parking lot doesn't do that. A parking lot really is what the building.
2012, we started to work to track what was going on with the police station. The Section 106 Memorandum of Agreement was signed. The city was committed to being careful about the impact of the police station on the surrounding neighborhoods, possibly saving some of the structures in the footprint, looking at materials and design, and they began to hold a series of hearings, public hearings, to get input from the community. Early in the process, they did an online participation where they asked people where the police station should go, but that was pretty much after the decision had already been made to put the police station at 27th and Prospect. So even though they looked at other areas and sites, they never considered any of those areas seriously because the political decision had already been made to put it at 27th and Prospect. Some other concerns, in addition to land use, included the actual design of the police station. So we were looking at the amount of land that was being taken from private property to put into a public use. Throughout the process, a number of city leaders, city council, argued that this was an economic development strategy for the surrounding area. We weren't necessarily convinced because really it was a public facility decision, and we tried to suggest that maybe there were some ways to make it an economic development decision. So for example, as the city and its architects were designing the police station, we suggested that they put the police station right on the corner of Prospect and 27th and create some storefronts or some kind of commercial activity where local business people could rent out space from the city to have small businesses.
Our goal today is to kick this off is just getting your comments, and we're going to document all the comments. And this is, several meetings we're going to have, and this is just our first one that we're having in City Hall with your group. So, fire away.
Alrighty, moving on. One of the sort of justifications for the project was economic development, and I was curious, beyond the immediate building and constructing the facility, how is this going to create economic development for the neighborhoods?
That was more of a
Yeah, I was going to say, where's housing? They have the area put into the CDBG plan. We've got all these different pots of money, and we don't usually do a good job of trying to concentrate them.
Yeah.
And so with this project, we're trying to concentrate housing money with police money, with PIAC dollars, and get, when you start doing that, all of a sudden you get, you get to a point where you may be able to transform. I don't know, and we can't do it to the level they've done in the green zone, but the sidewalks and curbs are going in the green zone now. So if you drive through there, and some of them are done and some of them aren't, it's amazing as you drive through there to see just the transformation that those curbs and sidewalks make. So,
I mean, to me, that's the kind of work that needed to happen before this site selection was made. And in particular, when you look at a public facility, you want adjacencies that are appropriate, right? And in this case, all the adjacencies are generally residential, and so you're taking residential and doing a massive land use change. And I really think not just that, but you had 4 fairly high homeowner occupancy blocks that you selected. And so, I mean, moving forward with public facilities, I would just say, when you do these kinds of major decisions, do that kind of work first, Because to me, this thing would be great if it was right next to the Linwood Shopping Center and the Bluford Library, because those are blocks that are completely blown out. Very, very problematic blocks in terms of residential condition. And that would increase the value of that Linwood Shopping Center, and it would make that public facility of the library safer as well. And so you start to get the benefits of multiple things in one place, instead of going from one single use of residential to one single use of a public facility. There needs to be some discussion about the community building opportunity of that piece, because that's an opportunity for you guys to really re-engage the community immediately that's going to be most impacted by this thing.
Well, it's definitely not up there on that drawing, but that's been a constant conversation point in our meetings.
It's been a theme since our very first meeting at the church.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally on the radar. It's just not
developed yet.
It doesn't show up on that yet,
Okay.
Yep.
So now, the last time we talked, Mr. Stinson, you said specifically the buildings are not going to move. Is that the case?
I was pointing out to you that this is where the programming has brought us thus far.
Yeah.
And from my opinion, I don't see them moving very much.
Okay.
So I was sharing my personal
Okay.
viewpoint. I am not the final decision maker on this project.
Okay.
So
So
there's
you-
there's a Major Lanningham involved, there's a Colonel Gallagher involved, there's a Chief Forte involved. I'm just a project officer. So I usually say what I think, though, and don't try to, dance around it.
Yeah, sure.
So I was telling you my position, but that doesn't mean at some point, some discussion maybe had at a meeting, and this may change in some way.
Okay. I'll take that as a maybe.
Missouri Police Sergeant Mark Stinson turned himself in today on charges that he stole $75,000 from his mother while she was in a nursing home.
Stinson wasn't just a police officer. His powerful positions branched out to his religion and even a paranormal hobby.
I wanted for the first hour for them to maybe focus on the fifth.
The Mark Stinson Fox 4 met in 2007 was a ghost hunter, checking out rumors that Union Station was haunted. Stinson is a co-founder of Ghost Vigil Investigation. Perhaps how he's known best most recently was his role in the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. He was assigned to the Capital Improvement Section and involved in planning the East Patrol office. Tuesday, Stinson had a new notoriety. Accused thief.
We believe this was theft, plain and simple.
Stinson is charged with a Class D felony on allegations that he used $75,000 of his mother's money to pay his own personal expenses. As a result, it's alleged his mother was kicked out of her nursing home when her rent wasn't paid for 5 months.
She still owes that nursing home and its pharmacy more than $20,000.
The Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services started the investigation into Stinson.
We ought to be able to expect police officers to follow the law. In this case, not only, sadly, do we allege that a police officer broke the law, but that he did so by stealing money from his own mother.
Okay, so most of the houses further east of me had been acquired pretty quickly by the city. I won't say quick, within the year they were acquired. And as people began to move out, that started just after July of 2012, that people started to leave like en masse. And so what you had afterwards, Olive in particular, that one was the first to empty out. Then Wabash, and then Park, and Brooklyn. And as the home started to empty out, vagrants hanging out, you didn't know what to find when you got home. You didn't know if somebody was going to be sitting on your front porch. You didn't know if somebody was going to be in your backyard or in your basement or in your house, or just didn't know what to expect when you got home. And that feeling that's a hard way to live. And twice my house was broken into.
be out, I'm out here hustling out of these houses, really.
I got a question, because I know you guys created the website, and...
Let's go ahead with introductions, if you don't mind, over here.
I'm Hampton.
Valentine Reed, Section 3 Coordinator with the Housing Authority of Kansas City.
Jerry McCoy, Community Affairs Director with Turner Construction. Resident. Forest Indies.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
We'll pass it over to you, let you read it for yourself.
Because last week in the last meeting, it was mentioned that the RFQs and the RFPs were going to be posted. But when I checked on the website, I didn't find
But I did.
for the particular project.
I did, that's it.
This is it?
That's it. And look in the middle of the paragraph, page, look at the middle of the page. It said limited to.
The certification process is not very difficult.
No, you don't want to certify when it's too late. To get all of the work that it takes to get certified. NB, WB, SBLE, Section 3, you can't do it in the 2-week window that it was given to us. And all I'm saying is that it's obvious that if you put this thing together and you put all these exclusions there, you already know who you want the contract to go to. And if that's the case, then let us know there is an exclusion process. And if there's which that is, if you read it out loud, it says it's limited to SBLEs. That's okay.
But then this continues to happen, and it's just another slap in the face. And it's not you, Eric, at all. You're not housing, and you're not a city planning.
There's some way that maybe that something can get worked out. I'm surprised that you've had a conversation with John Woods.
He's the one that says yay or nay on the CDBG. He knows what we're doing. But he's been to UMKC plenty of times. Marlon's had him in when we worked in Wheatley. They know what we're doing. But yet it's going to go to a big local company, and it's the same people that do everything. We're going top down every time. So I think if we can't get CDBG, why should I ever expect to get a real contract? And CDBG is doing free grant work. It's not to make money. So the city needs to figure out there's people trying to help for free. And all people do is point fingers at us and say we're trying to stop this project. No. If we can't even treat the neighborhoods right, how do I trust $60 million project going down? You know? Can't get a $25,000 grant. It kind of proves the point.
John asked the introduction, but when we got to him, no one else introduced himself.
We did so when we, earlier.
When the meeting started, we're gonna start on time from now on.
Yeah.
And we're trying to keep it to an hour also.
5:30, 6:30 is our meetings, and if something doesn't get answered, then you can always send me an email. My contact information is on lots of things.
But let us focus on this neighborhood. I don't want to go to the Green Impact Zone. I won't come to this meeting if we're talking about the Green Impact Zone. I'll go to the Green Impact Zone meetings because they have meetings also. We don't even do what we need to do in our own neighborhood because that's why it looks like it looks. I want to see us get our act together and then maybe bring Green Impact Zone in and show them what we're doing. Because they're not doing, go to the Green Impact Zone, All that money that's spent there, no different than our neighborhood. Let's focus in on our neighborhood, get our act together, because it is our turn. It is our time. And for somebody else to say, oh no, it's not your time, we get you out of here. It is our time. Let's focus on our neighborhood. We call it the Ring of Fire. I'm gonna be quiet after this one. We call it the Ring of Fire. And what is that Ring of Fire? The 4 neighborhoods. The 4 neighborhoods. If you need to know, if you need to draw that line, Washington Wheatley, Wendell Phillips, Santa Fe, Key Coalition, a Ring of Fire. I said, whoever came up with that, brilliant. That's what we're gonna make t-shirts out of. We're gonna pass that on, pass on the Ring of Fire. I'm gonna shut up after that. Get up early, stay up late to get prepared for the Ring of Fire. We don't even know what it's gonna be, but we know this, that it's ours. And if it's ours, it could be whatever we want it to be. Not what Green Impact Zone, not what we want it to be. Now, when are we going to get to that point where we're willing to do the due diligence to make it happen, to knock on everybody's door to say, hey, the East Side, and we want it to happen. Now, if you want to have that conversation, I'm fired up for that. Ring of Fire.
I'm officially resigning as mayor and getting a truck and one of those things, man. That's fun.
Square block area near 27th and Prospect to make way for the new crime lab. But before breaking ground, the city had to make deals with all the existing homeowners. 41 Action News investigators obtained this list, which shows the sale price of each home in the neighborhood, and discovered the city paid about $3.5 million to buy all the properties. Prices were all over the map. Some homes sold for just 6 figures, others just a few $1,000s. And some of those cases needed to be handled in court from people who appealed. So how did that price tag compare to the original estimate? That's what we wanted to know, but that's part of the problem. Turns out the original estimate of $57 million didn't have a line-by-line budget. 41 Action News confirmed it came from a rough formula and looked at comparison prices of similar projects like Johnson County's new crime lab. The big difference there, Johnson County was built on vacant land and would have had much different acquisition costs. City officials acknowledge they should have put a much more specific budget to paper sooner in the process. Discussion is now taking place about scaling down the lab and funding ways to pay for that much higher price tag. I'm investigative reporter Ryan Kath, 41 Action News. knock it down? Cool.
What was it?
Cool.
Yeah.
If there's anyone in the audience who would care to testify regarding this matter, please step to the podium, give your name and address, and we welcome your comments.
I don't think it's fair or impartial when you use city staff for a city-funded project. I don't think that's accurate. And because of that, I believe that there's a serious conflict of interest, not only among the City Plan Commission, but above the staff on ethical violation, an ethical violation. Additionally, the City of Kansas City unlawfully acquired this property for an alleged public use. Under the city plan's own regulations, Section G, it specifically says that if a city department is going to acquire property for any alleged public use, that they must first make application, submit the site selection, and have it reviewed and approved. That was 2011 when they started acquiring property. We're 2013. It's untimely, and the only way that this application can be adjudicated is through the Missouri Attorney General and the Missouri Supreme Court. You don't have authorization to do this.
Anyone else care to testify?
I have worked with the surrounding neighborhoods now since 2007. I have worked on helping them develop stabilization plans. And I turn around left and right, and the Board of Zoning Appeals, the City Planning Commission, city staff, left and right, continually make decisions that undermine housing values and stability in this area. And then expect people outside of this city hall to behave according to your rules. You're ignoring all the procedures that are required for good city planning. And I'm sick and tired of it. I'm tired of us looking the other way, okay, when it's predominantly African American homes and African American neighborhoods and people who have a higher rate of poverty, okay? Unacceptable, inequitable. You guys are you are creating this situation through poor planning. Mr. Bosch held up the site selection. There was never a blight study done through typical channels. The police department never paid for a blight study to look at blight. And if they had, they would have noticed that these 4 blocks that were selected were some of the highest home ownership in the surrounding area. They could have moved it 4 blocks to the north, or a block to the north, or a block to the south, and they would have found more blight. Why didn't they? Because this is a political decision. Okay? This decision was made politically. This is not a planning decision, okay? And basically planning has failed.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all for your testimony. Again, this issue will ultimately be decided at City Council, where they are well paid for their service and subject to the election by the voters, so I encourage you to continue to pursue this matter.
Groundbreaking ceremonies were held November 19th for the new East Patrol Division and Crime Lab. Chief Forte was the first of many dignitaries to commemorate the historic day.
This is a community facility. Just remember that it's a community facility, and I want to thank all the contributors. Again, I won't go by name, but everybody here supported this for the most part. Being here today for the groundbreaking shows that you support this, and it'll be great for Kansas City. It'll be great for Kansas City and the east area specifically. This is a great day for Kansas City, a great day for the east side, and this groundbreaking represents a new beginning for this area. This is 17 acres, approximately 17 acres that will be developed, and just imagine the possibilities.
All right, well, let's take those photos, so we'll count on 3 and let you guys take these nice photos, and then we'll do some dirt. So 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
you know, the shovels are supposed to be up. You're supposed to be doing dirt.
All right, let's do that on the count of 3. It's a new day in the 3rd District. 1, 2, 3.
Look up.